Hello. I'm going to cover the 2021 R2 new features in this video. The biggest changes are the enhancements to integrating your COBOL programs with web pages, and I'll be demonstrating that at the end of the video. We've also improved our compiler to create your Java classes easier and with some better functionality. And we've increased our compatibility with Micro Focus and IBM COBOL. A new option to reload classes in the application server has been added. And we've changed the way that we handle print jobs to remove previous delays when printing. We've also improved our EIS, which stands for Extended Internet System, to handle char sets and to handle differences in JSON files. A web client is our product that displays any COBOL screen, character or GUI, in a web browser. You don't have to change your COBOL code. But until now, you had limited options for making it look like a web page rather than a desktop program. So in 2021 R2, 4 new functions have been added so that your COBOL program can communicate with JavaScript. Now this allows it to run inside of a web page, and it makes your COBOL program a part of that web page. We're going to look at this a little deeper in the demonstration. Another addition to our web client in 2021 R2 is to be able to run a web type control or a component inside of your COBOL program. Now this is an easy way to add something like Google Maps to your screen. The description on the left is the code that is used in the sample that I'm going to demonstrate later on. And you can see that the JS name is fmap and that the control type is IWC-panel. The JavaScript code on the right is an example of how it would display this map. With these 2 new web client features, you can integrate COBOL into your web page and get a full-blown web solution for your familiar COBOL legacy applications. isCOBOL has about 23 definition files, so chances are you're using at least one of them. This meant that you needed to point to them during the compile using that -sp switch. But now the compiler will look for the standard copy files automatically. It's a simple thing that'll hopefully save you a lot of extra typing. Now you can catch both fixed length and variable length parameters in a called program. The runtime will treat the parameter as fixed or variable to match the type that you pass. Now some configuration variables cannot be set programmatically. These sticky configurations are shown in our configuration page with an asterisk next to it. Like the fonts, isCOBOL.font.default, and the application server authentication level. In 2021 R1, you can use an on-exception phrase to react to a failed set environment sentence for these types of sticky configurations. The application server reuses classes loaded previously, unless those classes are changed or unloaded. This depends on the setting of isCOBOL code prefix reload. Your options were value 0 or value 1. Well, now we have another option, and this option, the 2, will force the server to reload all of the classes from the code prefix. This is useful if you make changes to more than one class and you want a fresh reload of everything. You can do this from the isCOBOL server panel as well. When closing a print file, the runtime will now manage the print job in a separate thread. And it uses better TCP packet handling in a distributed environment. Both of these will dramatically improve print times. There's a chart here to show you 2021 R1 versus 2021 R2. And you can change this behavior with these 2 new configurations, one for print spooler and one for PDF printing. You can specify the encoding char set in these 2 methods in HTTP client's class now, displayX and displayJSON. The top level of a record definition often does not need to be in the JSON stream. Now this can be configured with the hasDummyRoot parameter, and we've added that parameter to these 3 methods. So let me show you these web client changes. So let's start by looking at the new library functions and the new control that were added in 2021 R2 for the web client. I'm running the IS samples, which is a great one to look at if you want to look at the new features. Under the New Features tab, underneath each one of the versions is an example of the new features that were introduced in that version. So we're going to look at the 2021 R2, And I'm going to start with the functions, the IWC routines. Now, this is going to work because I'm running this in web client, and you can see this is my web program in this container here. And then these appear, this is all HTML. So this isSamples is embedded in an HTML page. So I'm going to double click on the IWC $sign routines. This sample will communicate with this back page there, with the JavaScript and HTML in this page in the back. So first thing I want to do is open up the communication. So I'll click on Start, and an IWC $init was launched, and it is communicating OK. And now I want to send it some text. I'm going to send in all capital letters the word testing. Click on Send, and you can see IWC $send testing. And then it returned IWC $get, and this is where we got the result from the COBOL program, which converted it to lowercase. So it's a simple little test. I'm going to stop the communication with IWC stop. In addition to the COBOL program in the web page, you can also embed a web component in a COBOL program, and that's this IWC panel. It's very similar to a Java Bean container that can contain a Java FX component. In this case, it's an IWC panel container that can contain a web component. Our web component here is Google Maps. It shows the addresses for our offices. Here's our American office in San Diego, where I am. And we can also come over here and perhaps see the office in Piacenza. So this is an example of embedding a web component and communicating to it back and forth with your COBOL program. So what can you do with this? Well, there's a new web client sample, and I'm going to switch over to that sample here. And this is all HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So far, the JavaScript has gone out and asked a COBOL program, based on these permissions, what should I show in my menu? And it's returned the information from the COBOL program, and this is what we told it to show. And this list might look familiar. It is our IS application, the old application sample that we've always had. So if I click on Customer, it's going to launch the COBOL program and embed it right here. So this is the actual COBOL program. Everything outside of it is web page. And it should look familiar. We didn't make any code changes to the IS application, except those that we normally do from the configuration file to modernize the look. So here is the COBOL screen, the product screen, and then over here is your JavaScript. I think it's a great example of how you can bring your legacy application into a web environment with the web client, and it looks and behaves perfectly. No one can tell this is COBOL. This is JavaScript. It all looks great. And that's a first look at 2021 R2, especially the new web encapsulated features. I hope you give it a try. If you have any questions, you can contact us at support@variant.com. Thank you.